Hello everyone, and after a 3-week break we're finally back in Parkitect. I'm finally playing some games again. Obviously I did go away for about 10 days, but it's taken a while to get back into it since being back and actually playing the games and actually recording some stuff that's worth putting up. Obviously we've got the new DLC now, the Booms and Blooms pack for Parkitect. This is my first proper go playing with it really. What I wanted to do was a sort of classic like RCT style park, like the old Rollercoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 games. Just something with that feel, so some classic rides and some classic sort of generic theming. So I thought the best thing to build would be the new steeplechase. Immediately ran into some issues with that because I'd realised that someone had made a mod of this same thing or very similar, and I'd installed that but never used it before, or I'd subscribed to it rather before, and just completely forgot about it. So when I got the DLC, when I turned all mods off, it suddenly saved and loaded up my park again. All of a sudden the steeplechase I built had completely disappeared, and I couldn't work out what was going on. Eventually I realised that it's because I had a mod of it as well, so I deleted the mod, and then everything seemed to work fine. In the end I kept mods on because I used quite a few for this build. I guess I should really talk about what the actual idea for this was. So I've just built in a sandbox park, and we went with the name Lakeside Hills in the end. It's just a very small park just to show off some of the DLC items really. There's not a huge amount of scenery or anything in this DLC. There's just the new rides, the new coasters, and then there's stuff like fireworks and sequences and stuff like that, which I haven't really got into yet. The main new scenery focuses the foliage, which is quite similar to the foliage essentials. So you don't get an awful lot in this pack, but what you do get is quite good. In my next park, like my next big park, I will do something with the switch track and make some sort of amazing coaster with using that track. But yeah, that's not something that obviously I used in this one. So basically I put the steeplechase in. I felt this was quite difficult to build because it does run out of momentum quite quickly. In the end, the two racing horses, I just sort of watched them both go into the station at the same time and thought, yeah, I've got that synced up fine. I realised that the layout is so bad that the one of them actually catches up with the one in front of it, or the one behind gets synchronised with the wrong one basically. So it's not great, but all in all it looks okay. It runs okay, so that's the main thing. And I went for this sort of centrepiece generic type station with the spires on it and the red roofs and white wall type thing, which works out quite nicely for what I'm trying to get here. I changed my mind so many times fiddling about with the scenery in this park just because I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with it. I just knew that I wanted it to have that classic feel. So yeah, in the end we do some Rollercoaster Tycoon type stuff, but that's coming up later. The only 3 rides that go into this park are the steeplechase, we do a small woody, and the carousel. So really there's still a lot more of the DLC that I've got left to explore. You're probably thinking, why am I not in Six Flags? That will be the next Parkitect video. There's one more small area to build in that park and some finishing touches, and then it's pretty much done. But but I didn't feel that that would use much of the new DLC, so I really wanted to play about with that in a new park before I went back into Six Flags. But yeah, next time I open the game up, that's what I will be doing with it. Obviously, like I say, I have been away for a couple of weeks there. During our time away, we did do a visit to Fort Park. The review of that is up on the channel now in the previous video if you want to see that. I know it's something completely different for the channel, but it's just something I wanted to have a go at, and I had a few thoughts on how they are operating during the pandemic and all that sort of thing. So yeah, go and check that out if you're bored and you've got time. Moving on, really, there's not an awful lot to say about this park. Like you can see, I've put in the new foliage sort of around the area there. A lot of it gets removed and then changed and then moved again, and then I build a coaster which I delete because I'm not happy with it, and then I leave it for a few days, come back and try something completely different. In the end, we do a lot more terrain work to get it into the hillside feel, but then in the end I realised that I built this park somehow on a sandbox, but it was still doing the money thing. I'm sure I clicked for the money to be off, but it was still running out of money, and I was getting loans and stuff, and because there wasn't enough rides in the park to cover it, it was basically going bankrupt. So I had to blueprint the whole thing and put it into another new sandbox park. But it works out okay in the end, because in that one I get all the terrain and the river and stuff exactly how I want it. I suppose the name Lakeside Hills doesn't really make sense as it's a river that runs past it, but let's not worry too much about that. What you can see I've done here, bordering up all the side of that coaster, this is something that I probably will try in another park, but I just feel it didn't look right for this park. It's basically just copying the idea that they have at Great Yarmouth Pleasure Beach for their classic roller coaster there. A classic ride from my childhood, my first proper roller coaster when I was a kid. I feel like if I ever go back to the scenarios, this might work out quite well for the beach one. So that might be something that I do try again in the end, but I remove it here because I just don't think it looked right for the park, and I wasn't really happy with it, and I wasn't really happy with that coaster at all. So that goes and gets replaced by another Woody later on. Just experimenting here then with some big shapes and stuff. I was sort of thinking of having a bandstand going around it type idea, but we decided not to go with that in the end because I wasn't too happy with that either. Like I say, because this was just one of them parks that you play about with and try and come up with different ideas and whatnot, because the first time playing the DLC. So yeah, I didn't get everything how I wanted it straight away. Later on, the only other thing I want to talk about before I leave you with the time lapse is we built the entrances and the sort of station, if you like, from the original Rollercoaster Tycoon game for a much smaller Woody that I put in, and I do completely custom roofs for them, and I think they look really, really good. Definitely add to the classic feel of the park. So I will leave you to enjoy the video, and we'll talk about it towards the end. get back into it, then like you can see, as I was trying to explain very badly before, that is the sort of RCT1 style station building I went for. I just copied the entrance and exit, and then I thought I'll run the roof all along it as well, and then put a similar roof on the shops, the stalls, whatever, the food stalls, and it definitely has that classic feel. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Probably my favourite part of the park, even though none of that really uses anything to do with the DLC. It's mainly just mods and using Construction Anarchy to build the roof. But once that was complete, I was much happier with the whole look of the park in general. And yeah, that really is pretty much it. Like I say, just a small project to showcase some of the stuff from the mod, even though I don't really use that much of it. I think the foliage looks great. I think the steeplechase coaster looks great. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That is it for this park. Like I say, next time I'll be back in the Six Flags park that I've been working on, and that series is coming to an end now as well. So got some stuff planned for the future anyway. Got some ideas in my head of what we can do moving forward. Enjoy the cinematic shots and quick POVs of the rides, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.